All right. Hey, everyone. I won't lie to you. I'm a little bit frazzled after that speech, and then my wife just came home. So I've got all sorts of things going on. So I'm kind of just winging it here. The only thing that I've actually done to prep for this session is I just went through the practice exercise number 4. So that's ready to go. But yeah, the rest of that, we can just kind of figure this out. And of course, I've got YouTube on, so let me kill that real quick. All right, I'm good. I'm live. Hey, everybody. Ruby, Kratika, Sibi here. Team Turbo. Let's do this. Love having you all. All right, so y'all can kind of drive the bus here as far as some of the things we do. There's a couple of wickets we just need to hit. I was looking at weekly challenges. If you want to pick a weekly challenge to do, I am all ears. I will go ahead and go back to the learning path because that's what we've got to make sure we get through. So we are due to close out the data manipulation part. So, okay, we're scrolling here through the learning path and we are on continuing core topics. The last video we did, I hit the first part of continuing core topics, and we said that was probably 2 good days worth of work. So I got to try to stop saying so. That's my crutch transitional word. What we did was continuing core topics. Here we go. Transforming the data set. We did not VLOOKUPs, lookup functions, find and replace tool. Done there. We did append fields, all done. Not sure why it's still lit up. We did it for show. All right, so let's click back. Come on now, creaky thing. There we go. Transpose and crosstab, that's what we've got to do. We haven't looked at the data stewardship. We did the writing data. So let's click that, so that's grayed out. Okay, so let's take a look at data stewardship. Obviously, this is another video. What do we got here? 18 minutes. Let's round up to 20. So writing this down for the end. How long does this segment take? Data steward 20 minutes. Cool. If you got any questions, just drop them in the chat. I've got, if you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, I see both of them. So I'm on StreamYard and it integrates. I think we might have, let me check LinkedIn real quick. I might need to tell people, because we wound up with the schedule change, the way StreamYard works with LinkedIn, people might have got on the wrong event. I think it wound up creating 2 events with the reschedule. So let me just check real quick. See if there's any screaming folks like, where are you? All right. So it was funny if you, and I know some of you saw my little talk with Data Career Summit. And if anybody out there did this, no harm, no foul, just send me a message. I just got done saying, like, pontificating, pounding on the desk, like, send a message with your connection request. As soon as I got out of that talk, I had like 23 or 24 connection requests. I don't know how many new follows. Looks like I got a couple more. And like 2 of them had a message. Yeah. Anyway. Falls on deaf ears. I know that it's tough. Sometimes you're on mobile and it's hard to find where you can click to connect with a message. I've done multiple videos on that, both on LinkedIn and on YouTube. You can go find those. There is a way, both on desktop and on mobile, even if people have creator mode on, to go send them a message. But anyway, Michael P. Kiefer, yes, they are. YouTube is forever. And this is, if you go to my YouTube channel, you may have to click over to live sessions, but this is, if you go to the Alteryx 30-day challenge playlist, this will be listed on there. But if you go to the main, videos page, you won't see it because it's a live session. It's just weird how YouTube categorizes those. All right, anybody screaming at the... Love everybody kind of re-advertising, rebroadcasting. Yeah, good stuff. Okay. All right. Nobody's crying. Cool. So just so you know, if anybody's over there on LinkedIn, there's two events. The one that was rescheduled for today is the good one, um, but I hope nobody got lost. If not, hey, YouTube is forever. All right. So data stewardship, 20 minutes. So the only thing we have left is changing data layouts, practice. And you know, in lieu of the weekly challenge, I spent 5 minutes looking for a weekly challenge that encompassed everything that we've learned so far. Maybe we just take a look at that capstone project and see if we can take that down. The practice for this is pretty good. It's probably better than any weekly challenge we're gonna find that specifically has all of the things we learned here. And actually, when I did the practice problem, didn't even really need append fields, which is weird. You could use it, but okay. So changing data layouts, interactive lesson. Transpose and crosstab, they're a little challenging. Transpose and crosstab are going to be different from how you pivot data in Excel. They just are. You're going to designate key columns that don't pivot. Everything else is going to pivot. It's just tough. Can I share this website link? Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's community.alteryx.com. And then when you get in there, you just go to Learn, Academy, and Learning Paths. All right? But here, Learn, Academy, Learning Paths. We'll just go back to that. There you go. Okay. Resume. All right. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so changing data layouts. Yeah, transpose and crosstab, they're going to pivot and unpivot the data. It's not that simple. It's more complicated than that, as we'll see as we work through the problems, but that's a good way to kind of mentally map it, if you will. All right, so changing data layouts, it's a little video, 12 minutes. My scrolling wheel is crazy. Okay, so 12-minute video, data, layouts, 12 minutes, cool. Okay, so that is the interactive lesson. That's the last one we have. Try transpose and try crosstab. Let's do that. So transpose was listed first, so we'll do that one first. Okay, so transpose, I always think of it as you're starting out with T-shaped data because it starts with the letter T, all right? And this is much more kind of convincing. Hi, Sabi. This is much more convincing when I'm standing on that stage and at Inspire and I'm standing up and I'm like T-shaped data and I look like a big T. But yeah, T-shaped data, wide data is how you're going to start with transpose. Now cross tab ends with a T word and it ends with wide or T-shaped data. Makes sense, right? If you're a little weird like me. Okay, so we're going to start with transpose. We are going to pivot the customer segments to rows. Here we have, all right, it's not even, store A, B, and C, home, office, outdoors. What's our target look like? Okay, so we want the stores. Cool. Let's go, so we'll pull down the transpose tool. Here's the thing you have to remember with transpose. You want to designate, or you can designate key columns. Now, key columns are columns that you want to remain as columns. So they are going to keep their name and orientation if you designate them. They are optional. You don't have to have any. You can pivot all of the data. The other thing with transpose is every piece of data that you pivot is going to pivot into two columns. So all of your wide data will now become tall data. So it's going to pivot into two columns. Those columns are going to be called name and value. The name column is going to be all of your old column headers. The value column is going to be all of the cell values. Let's see how that works. For this one, we're starting out with store, home, office, and outdoors. All right, these are codes of some sort. And so you want to pivot these customer segment codes into rows. And your target looks like this. Store is still there. So we know that we have to designate store as what? As a key column, because we want to stay a column. Everything else pivots into name and value. Super simple. Store is a key column. Home, office, and outdoors all pivot. Run the workflow. I actually brought my keyboard up so I don't have to keep sticking my hand into the camera to run. I suppose I could just click the button. All right, so store, those values in store, key columns, but they've flexed to adapt to the incoming pivoting data. So all of our rows have now become, or our columns have now become rows. So the home office and outdoors columns pivoted. Those old header names became the names values. The old cell values became the values. And that is transpose. How many of these do we have to do? 4. Neato. All right, so that one's done. This one, pivot all the months to rows. Oof. Okay. So we've got product category, suggested age range, and average monthly sales. And it looks like they want all these month values to pivot. We look at our target. Yep. Product category, age range, monthly sales, name and value. So just the months are going to pivot. Let's bring down the transpose. And you just got to visualize what that's going to look like. You know that you have to keep these columns, but the instruction said pivot the month. So product category, age range, and monthly sales. None of those are months. We're going to keep those as key columns. Yeah, you have to create an Alteryx community account. Good call, Ruby. Appreciate you answering the questions. But it's real quick. I mean, it's literally like signing up for the Home Depot rewards program. You just put in your name and email address and you're in. Not an exclusive club. We have 500,000 members now, so that's really cool. Just announced that a couple days ago. All right. I actually haven't done a lot of talking today. Some days I teach for like 8, sometimes 10 hours. And yeah, your voice really takes a beating. Today I haven't talked that much. I practiced my speech like 3 or 4 times before I gave it. All right, still had to read a lot of it. Not that pleased with it. Okay, so 4 key columns. All of our months are pivoting. We can see there. Let's run it. See if it breaks. Ba-bing. Cool. Okay, so we have the 4 key columns still there. Absolutely. Back up a bit and explain key columns. Now, key columns, and you'll see a similar concept with crosstab when we get there. Key columns, if you look at how the data set starts. This is the first one, super simple. You got store, home office, and outdoors. The instruction says pivot the customer segments to rows. Now the instructions aren't that great, but customer segments are these codes here. So 14423, blah, blah, blah. So store A, their home customer segment is 85334. So these are just codes representing how we classify our customers. We want to pivot those to rows. Now we still need to be classified by something. And if we look at our output, you see store, home, office, and outdoors are your fields here. Over here you see that store is still a column. Now it's flexed because that home, office, and outdoors data has pivoted. It's no longer wide data, now it's tall. So those store names have to flex, they have to multiply, whereas over here you only needed 1 A, B, and C row because store A had 3 different codes along the row. Now we've pivoted all those rows into columns. So store A has to appear 3 times because here's store A's home code. Here's store A's office code. Here's store A's outdoors code. Okay? So you designate that key column so that column retains its name and orientation. It's still going to be a column and it's still going to have that same name. Cool? So that's why you designate a key column. Otherwise, everything's going to pivot. I mean, we get rid of, if we put store in data, look what happens. Now everything pivots, all the values. So you see that store A, home code, office code, outdoors code. We don't want that. We don't want the store name in the same column with all the other the code values. Okay? Yeah. Cool. So store is a key column. Now, you can't have the same column as a key column and data column because then it would duplicate. It would pivot and extend. You can have it neither. So you can drop columns in the transpose tool. So here we, like, if we click that, store would just disappear. Wouldn't be there anymore. So just remember that you can do that. Okay, and then this one, we had these 4 named columns, and then we wanted to pivot all of our months into rows. That's what the instruction said to do, and it does what it's told. Okay, we're getting complex now. What does this one say? Ooh. Pivot the data so the months are represented as rows. Let me show the data for this one. Pivot the data, same data set. Pivot the data so that the months are represented as rows. Store names and address should not be pivoted. So, store name, store address, not pivoted. Months represented as rows. Ensure the total is dropped from the data set. Where's total? Okay, total's at the end. Cool. So let's transpose what we know. So we want name and address to not pivot, and I'm guessing that includes city and state as well. So we'll make those all. It is absolutely possible to not have key columns. If you don't have any key columns, then all the data will either pivot or be dropped from the data set. Got it, Sydney? Just as we're about to do here with the total column. So we've demonstrated name, address, city, and state are all going to be key columns. They're not going to pivot. They will just extend to accept the new data pivoting into columns. The data columns are going to be, zip code is going to be a key column. The data columns are going to be all the months. They do not want the total. So let's run that. I didn't even check the target. Dang it. Let's go take a look. Okay, so in the target, name, address, city, state, zip, all good, all key columns. And then name 2, because there's already a name column, and value are pivoted. And sure enough, we have the exact same thing. All right. So there's that. Let's do the last one, most complicated. Pivot the data so that the months are represented as rows. Store names and address should not be pivoted, same as we just did. Ensure the total is dropped from the data set. Please drop any months except the first 3 months via the transpose tool. Okay. Neat. All right. So name, address, city, state, and zip. We don't want total, and then we don't want anything but January, February, March, I guess. Interesting. I don't see how this is any more difficult than the last one. But what's the target look like? Yep, January, February, March, 39 records. Okay. So once again, this is pretty similar to the last one. Key columns are going to be name, name, address, city, state, and zip. Those identifier columns. And then it says the only months that we want are January, February, and March. We don't want the total either. Let's run it. Target had 39 rows. And we have 39 rows. All right. Cool. So that gives you an idea of transpose. Now let's move on to crosstab. Drop any questions on transpose in the chat. It's a game of visualization. You have to be able to visualize what the outcome is going to be, and you know like what you want your data to look like. But what's up, Michael? You know what you want your data to look like. You've got to use these tools to mold it that way. Ruby finished as well. Good job, Ruby. Okay, let's do crosstab. Crosstab is a somewhat similar but also somewhat different problem set. Just says pivot to match target. Okay, we don't get any directions at all on them. All right, so here we're just going backwards on some of the previous challenges. Now, why did it auto rename name 2? Where would be the rename that column to make sense in transpose? It just renamed it to name 2 because there's already a name column. You can't rename in transpose. The pivoted data is going to become name and value. Usually you'll follow transpose with a select tool, assuming you don't like columns named name and value. Sometimes you're following the transpose with a crosstab, so you're kind of pivoting and then unpivoting some other stuff. We'll see that in the practice exercise as well. Hey, Ashley. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay. So yeah, hopefully that's name 2 column, which is month. How can we give it just select tool? Any tool that has a select functionality can rename it. So if you had to join next, you can rename in join, you can rename in append fields. Lots of different tools have that select functionality, Ruby. Okay, but usually you're going to use a select tool to rename. Okay, what's up, Paula? All right, so this is super simple. Don't get caught in the trap of thinking that crosstab just reverses what transpose does. There are times when it can do that. But don't think that that's automatically what it does, and don't always think that it can do that. Crosstab has some of its own hijinks and issues, okay? And you have to get used to it, and sometimes you have to condition the data, or you have to prepare the data in order to run a crosstab, otherwise it's not going to give you what you want. Here, it's super easy. It's a very simple data set. It's the same thing we did in the first step in transpose. We're going to unpivot it with crosstab. All right. Now crosstab, instead of having key columns, it's going to have group by columns. So when you saw the key columns, what did it do? It retained its name and orientation, but it flexed lengthwise in order to accommodate all of that data pivoting into column. Now, with crosstab, you're going the other way. You're taking it from tall data to wide data, making the T, right? Crosstab, T at the end. So you're pivoting into wide data. So the columns that you designate to keep their orientation, which are now grouped by columns, those ones are going to compress. So when you look at it, they kind of have to be set up with repeated values here, because they're going to compress down to their unique values for the pivot. So we're just unpivoting stuff here, store AAA, BBB, CCC. It's going to be super simple. We're going to go into the crosstab. We're going to select store as the group by value. Now, with the rest of the data, what we have to decide is you get one column to be the new column headers. You get one column to be the new column values. This is limited. So it is not just the opposite of transpose in every occasion. It can be sometimes. It will be here. But we'll see as we do a couple more exercises, it's not always going to work out that way. Right here, what we want is we want to go backwards. So the name, we've still got the name and value columns from the previous thing. So change column headers, you want those to become the name column. The values for the new columns, you want those to be the values. Now you have to select a method for aggregating values, whether or not anything is getting aggregated. All right, so nothing's getting aggregated here. All of these cells are just going to pivot one for one. Nothing's getting combined. But there will be instances where they will aggregate. So you got to pick it. If your cells are numeric, you're going to get numeric options here. If your cells are string, you're going to get concatenate first and last, which are string options. All right, so value is going to become the values. We get numeric options. Pick some. It does not matter. Nothing is going to aggregate. And then we look at our target. It's exactly where we started on that first transpose exercise. Okay? Go ahead and run it. All right. And just as designed, we pivoted right back to where we started. Sorry for that OK indicator. To where we started in the first transpose. Okay. If you got questions on that, drop them in the chat. We'll ramp up the difficulty just a bit. Look, 4 more for this. Hopefully they're not all just reversals. Okay. So here's the same data set as before. Let's look at our target. Okay. So here we're going to add the sum at the bottom and at the right. So that's another option that we can do in crosstab. Let's drag one down. We're going to do the exact same pivot. So store name value. Okay, and then the method for aggregating, nothing's going to aggregate. It's going to be the same pivot as before. But the bottom options here, you scroll down and you say, I want to total the column and I want to total the row. That's how you get these the sum row and this sum column. Go ahead and run it. And there we go. So the store entry here is null. You got nulls. What'd you do wrong? I don't know. We're grouping by store because once again, we got store AAA, BBB, CCC. Same as the first one. Really, the pivot is exactly the same as the first one. Group by store, change the column headers to the name column, change the value to the value column. Just undo what we did in Transpose, same as we did in the first exercise. The only difference on this one is we want the total column and the total row, and we got that. That's why the store is null there. If that's the null you got, it's all good because it's not a store, it's the total for all the stores. So sum of home for all three stores is this, sum of office, sum of outdoors. And then this column is the sum of all store A, sum of all store B, sum of all store B, C. And then this is grand total here. Make sense? One of these days I'll use a different color. Okay. So we pivoted, it looks like the target, all good. Yeah, so that total column has nothing to do with the sum aggregation method, nothing aggregated. If you look back at the original data set and then look at this, all of these cells they're one for one. Nothing actually got smushed together. We just made a total row and a total column. What's next? Entonces, pivot to match target. We have 120 records, bunch of graphing calculators. This looks like my macros class. Okay. So we've got a bunch of duplicated stuff here. I think we did this one. We pivoted this one. Okay, yeah, and we're just unpivoting it. This isn't very creative, but all right. Let's take cross tab. All of these categorical columns, we're going to designate them as group by. And this is, again, a reversal of one of the ones we did in Transpose. So product category, age range, average monthly sales. Name is going to become our headers. Value is going to become our values. Pick any aggregation method. It's just going to be a duplicate. All the cells are going to pivot one for one. Nothing's getting aggregated. You can see now I have 16 fields and 10 records, and that's the same as the target. Okay, again, just undoing something that we did in Transpose. Okay, pivot to match the target. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ID columns, and again, this is just an undo. All right. This isn't super creative. When we do the practice problem, you're going to see a more creative or interesting use of these tools. You're going to have to visualize how to use them, but this is just kind of muscle memory. Okay, so name, address, city, state, and zip, those all exist in the target, so they all need to be grouped by columns. Group by, or key columns, lets the column retain its name and orientation. So it's still going to be named these columns, it's still going to be a column, we're going forward. Then name to is going to be our column headers, value is our values, pick an aggregation method, doesn't matter, nothing's getting aggregated. I really kind of wish they'd had an example of something actually being aggregated on here, because that is more realistic of what's going to happen. Okay, so output is 17 fields and 13 records, and that is the same as the target, 17 and 13. Alteryx is really interesting. I agree, yeah. A lot of things, so just get on my, it's not really a soapbox, I suppose, just talking about Alteryx. A lot of things in Alteryx they're different from what you may be used to in Excel, but they're not, some things are not necessarily better or worse. We just approach the problem in a different way. And so, I mean, the way we deal with date times, anything is better than Excel. Literally anything is better than how Excel deals with dates. I'm sorry, it's just an atrocity. There are things wrong with Excel. I don't care what your perspective is, they're just dead wrong. The way that Excel deals with dates, I think the way it deals with data types, the way it deals with graphs, my lord, wrong, just wrong. Anyway, so I won't pontificate on that anymore. But I've dumped on Excel enough. Matt Bratton and I have a good friendly relationship, so I won't crap on that. But yeah, I think even he will admit there are things wrong with Excel. All right, but you know, the way that Alteryx does reporting is a little odd too. So it's not like we're perfect. We're not a reporting or visualization platform per se. We highly recommend do all your data stuff in Alteryx. Automate what reports you can. If you want to make something beautiful, that's what Tableau is for. Oh, I don't even have my Tableau book here. See, I've got SQL books back here. I've started reading them. Okay, cool. So what are we going to say for this? We've done 20 minutes on the video. We've done 12 minutes on the interactive lesson. I'm trying to make sure I'm not leaning completely out of frame here. What are we going to say for those triads? Let's say let's give everybody 30 minutes for that. Okay, so we're creeping up. We're about an hour in on this segment. Think when I cut the first half, I was talking about like 2 hours. So we estimated 2 days worth of work for that. We're at an hour between the video, the interactive lesson, and the triads for this. So we're at like 3 hours total for this study session. Let's see what this practice exercise is all about. Here we should be applying all of the tools that we've learned so far in this segment. We should have to apply find replace, append fields, transpose and crosstab. What else do we do? Output. There's no output data here, but this is a practice for the segment that we've just completed. So we should have to apply all of those. I will tell you, when I ran through this earlier, I did not see a need or a place to apply append fields. So I don't know if I did something wrong or what. Maybe the second time around I'll kind of look for it. Alrighty, let us proceed. What's next? Here's our instructions. Technology items that were shipped as freight. We're a shipping company. We ship a bunch of stuff, and all of the technology that we ship, we don't want to break it, so we don't want to ship it as freight. We want to ship it air or express or overnight or something like that. All right. We need to associate the appropriate shipping method with each order based on its order priority. That's going to involve these first two. There's a fourth input down here at the bottom. We need to combine the product categories information with the product details. That's the one down here. We need to combine both data streams to flag all orders which contain technology items and were sent via freight to be reviewed. Okay. Let's get into it. So we look at our first data set. Oh boy. We've got 16 fields here. So we need to associate the shipping method. This is practice exercise 4. Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah. We need to associate the shipping method, which is, where is it? With order priority. Which one is in here? I don't even remember. Okay, order priority is in this first data set. So if you're still downloading it, just when you pull it up, this first data input, 16 fields, 15 records, order priority is one of the last columns. This one here, in fact, having gone through this once, I can just say, do yourself a favor. We'll wait on that. It's just like a ton of fields and it's annoying to look at. All right, so order priority is in there, and here we have shipping method. So we can match to priority and tag the shipping method to this larger data set. So what tool are we going to use for that? We got one matching field and we need to append another. We're going to use find and replace. Now, find within field. This is within the main data set, within the find data set, that top one. And what we need to match is order priority. We need to find the value priority. It's already set up there. So the priority value from the shipping methods matches the order priority from the database of transactions. We don't need to mess with any of this other stuff. It matches perfectly. We don't want to replace anything. We want to append to record the shipping method. Okay, let's run that, see what happens. On the output, we've gone from 16 fields to 17. We see shipping method here. It's been appended to all 15 records. No muss, no fuss, all good. Okay, so that's step one. Step one, if we had numbers, is done. Next, we need to combine the product categories. Let me scooch down just a bit. Product categories information with the product details info. The headers in product details are product SKUs. Let's look at product categories. We have the product category, the product subcategory, and then a mountain of SKUs listed in a concatenated string. Look at that mess. So start thinking about, how do you deal with this soup sandwich here? You've got 3, 5, like 10 here. You got like 12 here. Some of these have 20 or 30 or. Okay, so how do we deal with that? Be thinking about it. What's next? Now we have 260 fields. Yeesh. Okay, so this is very wide data. You can scroll through it if you like. Annoying. Yeah, Ruby's on it. We have 4 rows, 260 fields. So every SKU has all of its information right here. So what we have is, we've got a set, the product details, we've got a set of extremely wide data. And we've got 1 column per SKU. In product categories, we've got some tall data, sort of. It's only 17 rows. But we have all of these SKUs stacked up on top of each other. How do we modify these two things in order to get them into a format where we can join them together? Ruby hit on text to column, split by the comma delimiter. There's one more element that's missing. So let's attach the text to columns tool. Product SKU is going to be our field, delimiter is comma. Now, do we want to split to columns? In which case, we've got to either sit here and count what's the longest one, looks like this row here. How many columns will we need? And then if we create that many columns, we've got nulls above or below in these shorter strings. This one here's only got 2 SKUs. This one's got only 1. What's our other option? Split to rows. All right, we split to rows, then we're only going to get the rows that we want. We're not going to wind up with a bunch of null cells. There we go. So there's 259. Now if you want, what's a useful exercise, you can use either the unique tool or the summarize tool and see if that field is granular. Or you can just throw a browse tool on it. And then let's do browse tool. We're going to throw a browse tool on it, run it again. And let's go to product SKU, hit the header. We have 259 unique values. So every one of those rows, there's no need to group it. We have 259 SKUs, and now they each have their own row. So we have each SKU listed in an individual row. We have their corresponding product category and product subcategory. So I would say this one right here, this stream, the product categories, is ready to be joined. We don't have to mess with that anymore. I'll leave the browse tool there for a second. Now we're going to deal with this product details mess. Okay, what did we say? Ruby said start with transpose. Okay, we are starting with wide or T-shaped data, so transpose seems a safe bet. Let's transpose. What's our configuration going to look like? Do we have a key column? Should we have a key column? Do we want a key column? What is a key column? Let's get crazy. What do y'all think? Seen some stumped people. I don't know. I say we do. Generally, if you have some sort of categorical or informational descriptive column, you don't want to pivot that. What we know we want to pivot is these header names. We know that we've got to pivot the SKUs, right? So let's just go ahead and again, nothing's ever broken with Alteryx. Yeah, it is interesting. Nothing's ever broken with Alteryx. You can run it. If it screws up, you just go back and change your configuration. You haven't broken anything. You haven't saved over anything. You haven't ruined your input data. Okay, you don't have it on your OneDrive where it's going to save over the original. Let's just go ahead and run it. I don't get the feeling that this is going to solve all of our problems, but it is going to solve some. Okay. Yeesh. Now we have 1,036 records. Okay. Now the reason we have that is because each one of these info categories had to zoom in, sure. The reason we got 1,036 record is because each of these info categories that we used as a key column then flexed to accept the incoming value. So we don't have a granular list of SKUs here. So we've got stuff that we need to pivot the other way. Yeah, we went info category for key column, everything else data column. So we need to pivot something again. What we need to do is take this info category that originally had 4 values. So we kept it intact, didn't pivot it. Now we need to make those the headers. Okay? And part of this is just the muscle memory of knowing what the data needs to look like and figuring out how to get there, and also making a ton of mistakes and then going back and undoing them and learning stuff. But transpose and crosstab, they're tricky. And now we need the info category to be the headers because we need the name and value to match. Right here we've got the SKUs, we need to add those categories to it. So coming in here, info category, we need to be the headers. We need to group by the SKUs, which is currently called name, but we're fine with that. That field's going to go away here in a second. Group by the SKUs because just like the set we're about to join with, we need one unique row per SKU. Now, column headers are going to become info category. We want product container, blah, 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 blah. And then the value is going to be value. So this is an example. You're not just pivoting and unpivoting. You're not just taking transpose to crosstab and grouping by what was your key column so that you're just sort of, I won't say the term that I used to use for it, but it's a waste of time, right? You're just undoing what you just did. Here we're pivoting something differently to make it look different. So method for aggregation, concatenate, it's a string field, don't worry about it, nothing's aggregating. Let's run it. Again, we said group by the name, i.e. the SKU field, because that's what we need. And lo and behold, we have 259 records, which also matches up here our unique number of SKUs. Okay? So we pivoted with the transpose, and then we switched it up, and we made the SKU column or the name column kind of the big dog the index column. We key columned these headers at first, and then we grouped by SKUs. So you have to be able to start visualizing these things and see what these effects are actually going to produce. And what it's produced is now we've got a perfectly joinable set of data. So up here we have unique by product SKU, the category and subcategory. Down here we have unique by SKU, we have container, product name, shipping cost, and unit price. All right. So can we finish this step now? Combine the product categories information with the product details info. Yes, because now we have a common key. Let's pull down a join tool, connect it left and right. And then how do we want to configure this? We're joining SKU on SKU. So product SKU, oh come on now. Product SKU is going to join to, that's why we left it, the name column. And then we don't need a duplicate column, so let's ditch the name column. Now going forward, really all we need, if you look at the final state, we need category, shipping method, order ID, and we need to be able to match. So really the only thing we need from this join is the shipping method. But we need to be able to match it to the SKU. So we can go ahead and just go ahead and drop the shipping cost and unit price. We'll go ahead and join these two. If you check the message, then we've got 259 joined, 0 left, 0 right, everything's good. We had a unique and granular join field. Life is good. Okay, product category, subcategory, SKU, container, name. All of that is fine. Really all we need is the product category. And we need to be able to join it to something. Now, what can we join to? We need to combine both data streams, flag all orders which contained technology items and were sent via freight. How can we join to this right here? What common key do we have? SKU, right there. All right. So all of these, really all we need is we need the product category joined to this set right here. So we're going to ditch a whole lot of fields, but let's join this up. The find replace into the left, the J anchor the join into the right, and now we're blending. We're just running one blending tool after another. Okay, SKU over here equals SKU over here. Let's just go ahead and deselect everything, and we'll pick exactly what we need. We need the shipping method. We need the product category. And I think we need the customer ID. Let's look back at our target. Order ID, not customer ID. Okay. So no customer ID, order ID. And that is it. Let's go ahead and run that. How many did we get output? 15 records. All right. Now you can, I will tell you that that's too many. You do have some duplicates there. Go ahead and select all of these, group by them, and run it. So you had 259 records, 5 fields, OP after join. Okay, that's what you should have after that first join. All right, there's 13. I don't know how they got to, in this answer they got to 10. I'm not sure how. But maybe they just ran a complete unique on order ID because there's a couple duplicates in there, but they have different shipping methods and product categories. So I don't know. The end answer is the same. So if you look back at the final instructions here, combine both data streams to flag all orders which contain technology items and were sent via freight. Mark those orders with review and everything else with null. How do we do that? They combined office supplies and furniture into one category. Probably what they did, Ruby, was run a unique. Let's see. So unique on order ID, run it. Yep, 10 unique records. So they just ditched everything. So got it, we're with them now. I have run it like this with, actually you get 15 out of here. I ran the formula on that 15, you still get the same answer. So not a big deal. That to me is a very questionable practice. You have rows of data that are different. So the proper course of action would be, let's go find out why we have different shipping methods and product categories for the same order ID. That would be my reaction, not, oh yeah, just pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Those other 5 rows, they're nothing. Anyway, my gripes about the realism of practice exercises. Okay, so we've got 10 rows. Now we need to put a review column. So how do we make a new column? Formula. So we throw a formula on there, and we need to flag for review anything that that has technology shipped as freight. So we're going to do a conditional statement, and as always, I like my operators on separate lines because it's just neater. And we're going to do a compound conditional statement, which I don't think we've done before. But there may be a neater way to do this. I don't know what. You could filter for this, but you'd still have to formula to create a new field, so I don't know why you would. So if shipping method equals freight, and let's drop down another line, product category equals, what is it, technology? Then our true outcome is flag it for review. Why did that not work? Oh, I closed technology with a single quote. Silly boy. There we go. Then flag it for review. Else, our false outcome is null. Our syntax all lights up in pretty colors. Oh, come on now. Don't do that. I just zoom it on the StreamYard. That was weird. Oh, it didn't work. Because I somehow put a null in there when I was trying to zoom it. Okay. You can see our syntax is all pretty colors. If our shipping method is freight and our product category is technology, then we flag it for review. If not, we null it out, end if, in accordance with the prophecy and the instructions. And our end result is we have, oh, did I screw that up? I did. It's supposed to be 2. Huh, we must have got rid of one. Did we filter out one that, okay. All right, so I will have to look at some other contributions. Let's see if we connect that way. Do we get 2 for review? Yeah. So something got filtered out. Somehow we refined differently than they did getting this answer. Zoom in on the conditional, faux show. Yep. So you're just putting 2 conditions on it. All good? Yeah. Okay. So that is it. I'm not sure how they refined that list down to 10, honestly. Maybe their unique just worked a little different from mine. But anyway, so we've got 2 flagged for review. Cool, cool. Anybody got questions? Oh, this 90354, that second one got filtered out by the unique. So I'm not sure why. They must have rigged something differently so it reordered. All right. Neato. That's practice exercise 4. Okay. Any questions on that? Cool. That took a little more time than I thought. Well, let's mark practice exercise 4 for a half hour. On this segment, we are at an hour and a half. And that was me scooting through, so I would imagine, if you're not used to this, it could take you a little bit longer. Let's budget 2 days for that. I am under the gun. I've got to go to my youngest son is a freshman in college, and this is his parents' weekend. So his school is putting on a presentation tonight, and we've got to get up there. So I only had an hour here. Otherwise, my wife is going to execute me. This is what we're going to do. I think at some point tomorrow, I will record the capstone exercise in lieu of doing another weekly challenge. I was going to try and do the data manipulation test for this session. Wound up not getting done. Life happened. Clients, the side hustle, the Data Career Summit. Anybody that saw Data Career Summit today, thanks for coming. Hopefully it was a good speech. But just, yeah, stuff happening. So I love this today. This was a great effort. Let's consider this 2 more days, and then let's say we'll see how long it takes for the capstone exercise. I'm pretty sure I did it the first time I certified. I haven't taken a look at it. Let's take a brief look at it. We got a couple minutes left. Okay. So back out from here, capstone project. Let's download it. Make sure you go ahead when you finish that exercise, you go ahead and upload those. I think all those practice exercises get uploaded. Let's rip that sucker open. Yes. Import. Yes. I love the 7 confirmations they make you go through. I say they, it's my company, but whatever. Okay, capstone exercise. Use what you've learned. Awesome. Team Turbo. Hey, you're going as fast as you can. I love it. Use what you've learned to make the engagement survey results more end-user oriented. Calculate departmental averages for each question. So we're doing some sort of transforms. Add in industry benchmark data. Compare the results. Scores averaging 1 point below benchmark should be flagged for review. Cool. So pretty much similar to what we just did. Ooh, that's ugly. I see some long strings and... man, that's nasty. All right. Questions and answers, numbers. This is annoying. Yeah, wouldn't be a capstone exercise if it didn't stress you out a little bit. Okay, so we got survey data. Yeah, I do remember doing this a long time ago. Okay, cool. Well, that looks a little thorny. There's definitely some find and replace stuff to do there. There's some text to column stuff to do there. Yeah, it's going to stress us a little bit. All right. So I anticipate that will probably take an hour or so to sort that out. That looks like a pretty decent kind of beginning to intermediate weekly challenge. So let's, I will definitely post something about doing this over the weekend. And then I'd love to see people do the data manipulation test over the weekend. We are at day 22 of 30. And I would love to see people that have 30 days get enough time that if they punt a test, they can retake it. Obviously, we're coming up with on 1 week to 30 days. So this week, we are going to do some reviews. We'll do some weekly challenges. Yeah, we'll work on this capstone, and then we'll get ready. Those of you who are taking the full core test, best of luck. Those of you that are taking the micro test, that's the way that I recommend. Simpler path. But yeah, absolutely. Hit me up with questions. Yeah, Ruby, it's definitely, sitting there just chewing on the data for a bit cannot be underrated. your mental process of looking through it and just visualizing, like what is this going to look like? What does it need to look like? Look at the final state. What does it look like in the final state? There you go. Okay, just looking at that, you're going to say, okay, review is the last thing, so ignore that for now. How are we going to pivot that? Where do we find these values, those numbers, those question values? Where do you find those? That's in the data. So not that hard. We'll get there. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming today. If you viewed me in any format on the various things that I did online today, really appreciate everyone being there. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Hey, folks, stick with me and I'll make you a genuine Alteryx hero just like me. Have a good day.